Blizzard is about to take the biggest risk of all time, fundamentally changing WoW as we've known it for the past 20 years. Now, you probably heard the news of the upcoming add-on purge, and this has all been met by nasty debates within the community, with some praising the death of weak auras, and others doom posting that these changes will kill WoW for good. But regardless of where you stand, there are some questions few people are asking. With add-ons gone, what will actually happen to skill gaps in PvP? Who will these changes affect the most? Will it be newer players looking to dip their toes into Arena? Or will it be those rank 1 sweats who have been, quote, carried by add-ons for the past 10 years? Is Blizzard's gamble an attempt to attract new players to WoW, or a conspiracy to eventually port the game over to consoles? We're here today to answer all these questions and more, discussing how Blizzard's gamble could wind up paying off, or how it might end in complete disaster. If you think the biggest rivalry in World of Warcraft is the Horde versus the Alliance, or PvE versus PvE, think again. The biggest division in WoW is the player base. On one extreme, you have the most hardcore and dedicated players in the world, and on the other, you have new players and the most extreme casuals. Every expansion, Blizzard has to design their game with both extremes in mind, but they can't make everyone happy. And now their goal in Midnight is to reduce the barriers that would prevent casual players from enjoying more competitive parts of the game. But what is really gatekeeping players in the first place? What is preventing players from crossing into cutting-edge content? Two of the biggest culprits, at least according to Blizzard, are bloated combat systems and add-ons, which they are both trying to fix in the next expansion. Their goal is to make the game more accessible by reducing barriers to entry, which should in theory reduce the skill gap between players. But here's the thing, we think the skill gap could potentially widen, particularly for most of you watching this video. Here's why. To get good at PvP, you'll need to level a few skills, the first being mechanics. Having good mechanics starts with the basics, like how you control your character, and then branches off into how efficiently you can deal damage. Basically, anything that involves pressing a button or moving your mouse is part of mechanical skill. It also includes reaction speed and how quickly you process new information. Someone with good mechanics can land an interrupt, pump the meters, while being able to perfectly move across the map like a Ferrari. In nearly every competitive game, not only are mechanics the most important fundamental skill to master, but they're also really cool. It's why anyone can appreciate a frag montage even if they've never played an FPS game. Or why the Daigo parry still looks insanely hype even if it's over 20 years old at this point. We're really getting old. Anyway, mechanics alone aren't enough to excel at PvP, and if you really want to improve as a player, you're going to need some game knowledge. In Midnight, there will be 40 unique specs in the game, and hundreds of abilities that every player will have to memorize if they want to compete in PvP. This is on top of knowing basic arena strategies or how systems like diminishing returns actually work. It's the sort of stuff we teach in our Academy courses, like our Knowing Your Enemy series, which are some of the longest courses on our site, and that's after condensing information down as much as possible. The older a game gets, the higher the mountain is to climb when it comes to game knowledge. If you want to compete in Pokemon VGC, you need to memorize hundreds of Pokemon and their typings, the dozens of moves they can learn, optimal stat distributions for each one, and the over 200 items they can hold. All of this for a game originally designed for children. Finally, if you really want to excel at PvP, you're going to need some game sense. Now, this is a bit harder to define, but involves taking a combination of game knowledge and mechanics in order to consistently execute the right play. When someone like Waz is playing Arena, he's making a ton of predictions on how the game will play out. He knows how the enemy team will react, and he's ready to adjust his strategy based on every outcome. Someone with good game sense knows how to play when things are going right, and more importantly, when things are going wrong. Of all the skills needed to PvP, game sense is probably the hardest to master. If one thing is definitely clear, it's that WoW is hard these days. Learning a new class means knowing your goals, sustained damage, burst sequence, opener, win condition, min-maxing tips, and more. Sure, you could spend hours digging for all this information on the internet, but what you eventually find might be outdated, from sources who might not know what they're talking about. But at SkillCap, we condense literally everything you need to know in one place, saving you an insane amount of time with thousands of videos organized into courses for every class, while only working with the best and most experienced players in the game. And if you want personalized help with your gameplay, we offer every member one free VOD review every month and a direct line of contact to a support network of rank 1 gladiators. We even help you set up your UI with the click of a button, avoiding all those headaches of configuring all those add-ons. Everything we offer is backed up by a rating gain guarantee where we promise to deliver results or your money back. So if you want to save time and hit your goals fast, be sure to use the exclusive discount link below to get started. So obviously there's a lot standing in your way to becoming competitive in PvP, but what does any of this have to do with add-ons? Well, if we take a trip to the PvP forums, there's one common belief plastered everywhere. It's that add-ons play the game for you, which we think is at least partially true. What add-ons do is reduce the amount of knowledge and game sense needed to play PvP. When you have sounds blasting in your ear whenever someone pops an offensive, or a giant pop-up telling you that your healer is stuck in CC, it means less burden on you as a player. The add-ons are giving you a boost to knowledge and game sense for free. This works via classical conditioning. In the same way you could teach a dog to drool at the sound of a bell, weak auras can train us to press the defensive at the sound of an air horn. So the reason we think add-ons playing the game for you is at least partially true is that they can help automate cognitively demanding tasks. We don't really think they help too much mechanically since they can't physically press your keys for you. Even if you do use the one-button rotation, you still need to press your defensives and land interrupts. So what is Blizzard actually doing with add-ons in Midnight? As it currently stands on the alpha, all APIs related to combat will be completely unavailable to add-ons. This covers everything from cooldown tracking via Omnibar and OmniCD, buff and debuff tracking with nameplates and big debuffs, and even diminishing returns, which most people handle with Gladius or S-Arena. Of course, there will also be no combat-related functionality for weak auras, which as of now has ceased development entirely for retail WoW. What this all means is that knowledge and game sense will now be more demanding, since there will no longer be add-ons to help solve these problems. Players will need to focus more on developing knowledge and game sense on their own, but here's the thing, we think some players will be affected way more than others. Arena ratings in WoW follow a bell curve distribution, with 1800 rating being somewhere around the center. We think that players on the lower end of the spectrum are going to be the least affected by the add-on changes. At this rating, mechanical skill is the biggest limiting factor. Just look at these games Enlin recently played at 1k rating. The players in these games are sometimes standing still and auto-attacking. Add-ons don't really help with this, and chances are many of these players aren't even using add-ons at all. On the other extreme, we think the effects of the add-on ban will be relatively small for the best players in the world. If you're capable of playing at a rank 1 level, or if you're an AWC veteran, you already have a ton of knowledge and game sense, while obviously having insane mechanical skill too. Games might be a bit more clunky, but there's a high chance that experience will carry. Game director Ian Hazzikostas even said in a recent interview that the skill ceiling should be in about the same place and the ways in which it's measured should be fairly similar for people. What we're predicting is that the biggest effect of the add-on ban will be here, players who are roughly in the rival to elite range. Generally speaking, players in these brackets already have decent mechanics. Their character control, rotation, and reaction speed is good enough to where they can really start to take advantage of add-ons in the first place. Even if they lack game knowledge and have an unpolished game sense, they can rely on add-ons to slightly bridge those gaps. And since the strongest effects will be felt in this range, there will inevitably be some consequences for players slightly below and above these benchmarks. This is why we think it's possible that skill gaps will actually increase in some parts of the ladder. If players want to stay ahead, they will need to develop their knowledge and game sense, since mechanical skill will eventually suffer diminishing returns. In theory, a wider skill gap might actually be a good thing. What it means is that players will be more accurately matched against one another, since there won't be any add-ons giving cognitive advantages. But here's the thing, weak auras isn't completely going away, as the new cooldown tracker will retain some of its functionality for tracking buffs on your own character. This even includes sound alerts when major cooldowns become available, or reminders to refresh HOTS and DOTS in order to benefit from the pandemic effect. And while we haven't gotten an update yet, there might be more default nameplate customization in future builds. Now, there are still some big and very important questions, like whether it will be possible to track interrupts. Casting is already pretty tricky, and will be even harder if you don't know when you actually need to juke. And for any healer, Blizzard's raid frames leave a lot to be desired, since they're currently limited to 4 buffs, which are incredibly microscopic on the alpha. The irony is that add-ons are still kind of there, and you will still have to set up your UI, but instead of importing an add-on code, you will now have to decide one by one which abilities you want to track. We also don't have any indication yet on how diminishing returns will be handled by Blizzard's UI. Currently, most players are using arena frame add-ons to track this information, and since landing CC is a fundamental part of PvP, the game might feel very frustrating to play for everyone without a simple DR timer. Overall, Blizzard has a lot on their hands, as they're basically speedrunning the entire development process, and things could get a bit messy. The gamble they're taking is absolutely massive. There are other questions that will remain unanswered until we actually play Midnight next year. We know that Blizzard is pruning a bunch of abilities, which on paper should make mechanical skill less demanding, but it's not like our classes are going to feel like Classic all over again. We've already experienced ability pruning multiple times in the past, and each time the game has still felt mechanically demanding in PvP. It's clear though that Blizzard wants the game to at least seem more accessible to newer players, especially with the addition of a brand new practice mode. There are also some indications that gearing is getting easier on the PvE side, which could have some spillover effects into PvP. But we want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on Midnight so far? Are you optimistic for the future, or do you think that Blizzard will drop the ball? Let us know in the comments below. And we would like to remind you that every expansion, we help thousands of players just like you hit their rating goals. Like Gizmo here, a Resto Druid hard stuck at Rival with over 5,000 games played, who gained over 600 rating in a few weeks just by using SkillCap. Our damage and healing courses save you weeks or even months of your time, condensing down everything you need to know into bite-sized videos. You don't have to be scared to sign up because we have a rank up guarantee that promises you'll gain at least 400 rating while using our service. So if you're serious about climbing, visit the discount link below to get started. Anyway guys, we want to thank you all for watching. See you soon.